Yo and hello. Good evening,
Yo
ladies
and
and
hello.
gentlemen, boys and girls, kids of all ages. What up, Herman?
What
Wanted
up,
to
Brad?
say thanks for joining us on episode 171 of Hobby Hotline. Good evening, and thank you for spending your evening with us. We're gonna go live this evening, and we're probably just gonna have a lot of fun and talk about baseball cards and baseball card stuff. There's not been a lot of news, so we were in the background trying to figure out what we were going to talk about. So it's your night. We're going to go out by your topics and your questions. And as we go, I first wanted to say good evening to the lovely and talented Jenny Miller, and of course the distinguished Rich Klein. Good evening to you too.
Good
And
morning.
we've got Cooter Lee who says yo and hello. So yo and hello back. And we got another yo and hello from Baseball Hall of Fame autographs. And we got a skid mark. We've got a skid mark sighting at like a minute 55 seconds in. I want to say good evening to Tracy as well. And then look at this, Mr. Dan Ryan. Yes, I am driving the ship for a change. I am driving. And we do have Victor. 85 is a true rookie, Mr. Victor, rookie card specialist, and Victor. So good evening. And yes, Cooter, Bo did move upstairs.
He literally,
Better
he
Wi-Fi.
literally did right before we went on.
Right before we went live, I was a little choppy, so figured better get to the good Wi-Fi zone.
And then we've got Chris Harris. What's up, Chris Harris? And then finally in the good evenings, good evening to Big Scott 35. And I want to say yo and hello, Mike. What are you doing and how are you doing this evening?
Me? I'm doing great.
I appreciate the love, man.
Easiest question I've had all day, you know.
Well, okay, I'll have a harder question for you coming up.
Oh, great.
Mr. Bo.
What is up?
On this fine evening?
I'm good. I was actually pulling some 1986 tops right before we joined the room. So pulling some Cubs, and I got some Red Sox and Yankees to send out. So an underrated set. I love 86 tops, and I don't think they get as much love from the hobby in general. A lot of people kind of poop on 86 tops. I don't get it.
I know we got some poo-poo sightings and some yo and hellos already, so it's very colorful. It's very colorful.
I do not have a copyright on yo and hello, so people can use it to at their leisure. Feel free.
Sweet. And yes, I am a Rangers senator for Halloween.
I was sitting here clicking on this comment, trying to get it to come up, and it wouldn't do it.
I was not going to let something that awesome just sit out there. How are you doing, Mr. Herman?
Man, I'm doing good. I'm doing great. I'm enjoying life and still kind of riding on cloud nine after last night. So
I hear you. Well, for those of us who didn't know what happened last night, tell us a little bit about last night, real quick.
Well, I actually got to interview Dr. Beckett for the first time.
Very cool.
Because everybody knows that watches Hobby Hotline that the first time I was on here with him, I kind of froze up and didn't say much of nothing at all. So, and I will say that this time I did not freeze up. So,
very cool. How was that to actually get to interview?
Great. Oh, it was awesome. Like I said, I mean, we kind of started it out with a Zoom call, and that just kind of carried over into him jumping on with me and Ken, and he had about 30 minutes to spare. So we went a little early and stretched it out to about 45 minutes. So we got a lot of good questions of our own, and then some in chat. So.
Well, I did, for anybody who is interested, I did it a little on the fly, and wow, on the fly.
You're stealing all Mike's thunder tonight.
Little on the fly, and made sure that I put the link to that episode so that everybody could click on it and make sure that they watch Herman not freeze up with Beckett. So I have an interesting question for you, Mr. Mike.
Go ahead.
So this weekend, Sunday, on Meet the Press, they were interviewing a young lady from the Fed, and the Fed stated that they are going to, before the end of the year, have 2 quarter-point raises in before the end of the year, and if the economy doesn't slow down, they're going to have another quarter-point raise. So, as a finance guy, any thoughts on that dragging the hobby economy down a little further than people are already predicting it to go down, or you just say, I'm still going to buy my cards?
Well, there's just between what I would do and what other people might do, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Warren Buffett and I share the same accountant, so I can buy cards whenever I want. No, it's what happens to the general economy affects the hobby. There's no question that is true. And cards are what matter. Who cares? Cards are what matter. They're going to be a segment of the population that buy cards no matter what. I mean, we're seeing record sales on different cards all the time. So you're going to have the super high end do fine. Like, again, those people are insulated from interest rate hikes. If you have the money to buy the 9.5 Mickey Mantle, you don't care about inflation. Let's just be honest. It's no big deal what the economy does. You have more money than you know what to do with because you're buying a Mickey Mantle 9.5, right? So those people don't care. And then you're going to have the low end stuff. Well, people always like dollar cards, and that'll always be part of it. And like John just said there, collect, don't invest. I've been pounding for anyone that would listen, that cards are not an investment. They can appreciate in value. That's not the same. They're a collectible. And there have been periods where collectibles have been a great thing for people to make money on. But it's also different if you're Bo and you're doing it as a business. That's a different mindset than a guy like me. Guys like me don't go away. We just lurk and wait and bide our time. So call in and join Finance Talk. Like, come on. Hear this crap. Like, nobody wants to hear me talk about this.
Well, the second thing I was going to do is ask Bo, does that affect anything that you're going to do, knowing that the interest rate's going to climb at least a half point, if not more, by first quarter?
It's not going to. Well, I mean, eventually it will affect somewhat, but if we do see a trickle down and it affects. Fortunately for me, my business is, I spotlight dollar cards, and my eBay store is full of cheap cards. So I think the first cards that we'll see values, or not values decline, but people stop buying, are going to be the little more expensive cards. They're not going to be my $2 cards in my eBay store. But from a business standpoint, as a buying opportunity, it presents more buying opportunities because people that are affected may look to get out and sell on the cheap. There's going to be 2020 COVID hit. Card prices go skyrocketing. Now everybody's digging in their closets. I can't find in 2020, I can't find collections to buy on Craigslist or on Facebook Marketplace. If you watch a show like Chasing Cardboard, if they would have done that in 2020, I bet they would have found a lot less opportunities than what they're finding, in today's marketplace. So there's a lot more buying opportunities that could present itself, if it does widely affect collectors or those who speculated and wanted to invest in cards.
So Harmon is a pure collector of just Braves cards. Does it affect you at all? Probably not, but I thought I'd ask.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I'm kind of in the same mindset of, like, Zach and Porter. And that goes back to, like, what Bo said. It doesn't really affect the way he does business in the hobby because he's low dollar cards, and anybody with a lower budget they may set back $20 or $30 a week, and they're going to buy cards with those no matter what. You can't buy a hobby box with $30 a week unless you're going to save up for a month or two.
Yeah.
So, and that's basically where I'm at. I mean, I'm low dollar unless I'm going after another rookie or something, but I've got most of those. So now I'm just kind of filling in the blanks.
Well, and Logan makes a great point of just pivoting. I mean, pivoting into smaller cards or pivoting into different things. So I don't know what the answer is. I thought about that today because I knew that, Mike was going to be on, but we're going to different opinions. So I thought it would be an interesting topic to at least start with now that I've completely bored everybody who's watching.
Is there only 3 people left on the stream now?
Yeah, there's only 3, and y'all are the 3. Let's talk about this right before we were starting to come on. There is there was this little bitty thing that happened in Sports Collectors Digest of some content creators and just people having on the main stage, and we said, what was the question asked was, do magazines still matter? Does print or do these websites matter, or do people still get their news from this, or do they get it from the news or from Twitter feed or whatever? What say y'all?
Well, I look at that picture every time, and John Keating gets ugly every time I look at that picture.
He looks so mad.
Well, he's got an unfair. He's sitting right between 2 strapping young men, Chris Harris and Mike Moynihan. He's at a disadvantage.
That is true. I make everybody look bad. I make Brad look short when I'm standing next to him. I mean,
I know.
Kevin Hart makes Brad look short.
That's true.
Oh, come on. That was just completely called for.
To answer to open the discussion, I guess, I haven't had a magazine subscription or a publication subscription for a hobby publication in 15 years, probably. And I don't feel compelled to get one now. It's just, I used to be a avid, I would wait. There were 2 magazines I couldn't wait for every month as a late teenager, early 20s guy. And that was my Beckett and my Playboy every month. I would look forward to those every month. Then I found Jesus and I didn't need Playboy anymore, but I still needed Beckett. So, but it totally was the hugest thing was to get my Beckett every month, and that was a big deal. It's just the information now is so easy to get in different places that I think the influence of these types of websites, whether they're blogs or print magazines or whatever, is losing its luster. And that's kind of sad.
So I'm old school and I'm the youngest on this panel. I've had a subscription. I actually have an active magazine subscription. You'll laugh when I tell you what it is. It's Pro Wrestling Illustrated. But I had a subscription to Sports Collectors Digest as recent as 2 or 3 years ago. I'm old school. I love holding a publication. I'm on Twitter all the time, and I get most of the information. But I've tried Kindles and reading on an iPad. I just don't like it. I'd prefer just buying the book. So I'm old school in that sense. And I had this I don't know if it was on Hobby Hotline or if it was a different podcast. I talked about Beckett and Beckett magazine. I would subscribe to Beckett if it was more in the form of a Sports Collectors Digest than just a price guide. Yeah, there's some articles in Beckett, but the publication now, but it's just, it's mostly prices and ads and just a few columns here and there. And I don't, see the benefit in buying a subscription or buying it off the newsstand. But, now that I talk this out, maybe I should go get a subscription to Sports Collectors Digest, put my money where my mouth is.
It should be done by the end of the show, Bo, I think.
What do you think, Herman?
Well, I Beckett, the Beckett, the price guides they've kind of made a change from the ones that used to come out to the ones they're out now. I remember back late 80s, early 90s, well, mainly in the late 80s, there weren't that many ads in the Beckett. And I would read them cover to cover and right down to the notes to the editor and all of it. But I'm like Bo, it's like now it's like 90% of your magazines are ads and maybe 4 or 5 articles, and that's it. So you read 4 pages and you've read the whole magazine outside of maybe ads. So, and I really, to be honest with you, I couldn't tell you the last time I've actually even looked inside of a magazine.
So I do. Do y'all remember in Beckett, they used to have one of my favorite things, in fact, probably my favorite thing. They do like a collector spotlight or a super collector spotlight, and you could read about some dude, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, look at all those Gary Carter cards or, whatever they collected, and they'd show off a bunch of their stuff. They'd have some cool pictures. I always just thought that was fun. That's the stories I want to read about. And, and if there was a publication that just profiled different collectors, like that would be really cool.
Well, remember ESPN, when ESPN, the magazine, really hit its stride was when you couldn't read the articles online. You couldn't read the interviews. You had to read them in the magazine, and they held that back for at least 2 weeks before they actually put those online. So that was a way for them to actually keep interest into the magazine, the print, until it ran amok. But I distinctively remember having to go buy ESPN the magazine for the interviews, especially for the big names. So maybe that's a good idea. I don't know.
I come from a journalism background, worked in newspaper a little bit. Newspapers were behind the times in adapting to the internet and especially with advertising, because now we expected free news on a newspaper's website for so long that now when there's a paywall, we get ticked off because we have to pay when it's been free content for so long. But a newspaper, you couldn't just, I guess you could go read the newspaper at the newsstand or in a magazine store. But what I kind of like what Mike talked about in like a spotlight on super collectors, I wish publications and newspapers did more personal interest stories, because the news has to be reported. Like, big time news has to be on Twitter, Facebook's, whatever social media platform, your website, that news has to be out there. But, I wish there was more personal interest, and that's the type of content that I would like to consume if it's a super collector spotlight or maybe a blast from the past, dig through the archives of, hobby content and, how was it, interviews with previous executives at card companies. And that's the type of content that I would like to consume.
It's interesting to think back and, God, what was that? Like the PSA magazine that I think Logan was talking about it or somebody earlier.
Yeah.
I read that. I got one at the National. I used to, when I had my PSA subscription, or whatever they call it, collector club or whatever. I would get that and I'd read it because it had some cool human interest stories in it from time to time. But I think with our news cycle being so swift, like the GTS story, by the time you can print it, it's old news. Like nobody cares anymore. We're on to the next thing. We're so what's next, what's new. It's hard because it takes a while to put a publication together. You can't just put it out the next day.
Right.
Newspaper can, but that's not national or whatever. So yeah, it's just a tough road for those types of publications. I mean, I'm wearing my Sports Collectors Digest hat today in honor of this topic, but like, it was great, talking with those guys at the show. They came to several events. They were great, and I think they loved seeing our side of the hobby, if that makes any sense. Like, just collectors hanging out and talking, and content creators hanging out and talking, and I don't know, the human side of it, right? Not the corporate side of it, but the corporate side pays the bills.
Right.
So it's a
Right. It does.
tough thing.
So I wanted to completely highlight what is up, Tim. What is up? And if y'all know, Tim's a guy that designed and put together all of the T-shirts for the National and sold the T-shirts. All that look that you saw of the 19 or the 42 number and the 42 National. That's this awesome dude right here. And I just wanted to say what is up, and we really appreciate your support. And he did, just saw Panini basketball hoops, football cards, contenders. It's a little off topic, but I thought I would highlight because of his support. So thank you. A couple of really good comments in here. We've got, I hear some of the good features from time to time in Beckett, Gary Carter PSA, 1980-81 separated tops, basketball stars. Well, what's really interesting about this comment is Mike Summer does a great job of actually highlighting and putting together podcasts on older sets. And I know that's something that everybody does, but with all of the content that's out there, that's actually being done. So does the content creators or the search for content creators or anything, does that kind of limit what print can do? I don't know. What do y'all think?
I'm still trying to wonder what your question is, honestly.
Like, because we sit here and we talk, we're going to talk here for an hour or now, 20, 40, 35 minutes or whatever. What we can talk about various topics all day long. And as a newspaper guy or a website guy, we can talk about this constantly, but they have timelines. They have print times. They have everything. Does it limit what they can talk about because of how long it takes to go to print? I don't know.
Well, if you're producing content like the evergreen content that Mike had mentioned, and there is no time. I mean, there is no time limit on, if you're going to review the 1980-81 Topps basketball set, you're not under the gun. You don't have an 11 p.m. deadline to get this off to the presses. So you can do more with those types of stories, but if it's, the GTS story, you've got to get that to print for the next issue or whatever, because it's top news. It's not going to be top news if it's published, in an actual, newspaper, magazine, whatever. But, you do have those deadlines that we've got to get this to the press as soon as we can for the next printing.
Yeah.
2 points I want to make. I think, like, take the GTS story. It was Ty calling me at 9:00 at night saying, "Hey, you need to put a video out. I've confirmed this. We need to break this story." And I'm like, okay. It was out in literally 15 minutes after that phone call. We were able to, yep, this is really happening. We did a video on it. Boom, it's done. So that's one side of the spectrum. You got this the stories like Mike's talking about, like Bo said, who cares when you do it? It's not going anywhere. But if you want to get out breaking news, it's got to be done right then in our 24-hour news cycle. But then you've also got, I've got great informational videos that I've done over the years. Nobody watches that stuff. Nobody goes back into the archives and watches old stuff that even rarely, sorry, Brad, thank you for your support. But rarely do people go back and even though the information might be timeless and might be as relevant today as it was 3 years ago when I put it out, everybody, what's I'm looking at my feed, what's there tonight that I want to watch, and tomorrow I'll see what's on tomorrow. I don't use the watch later. I know a lot of people do on YouTube, for example. Oh, I'll watch this later. That's a great topic. I'll catch up with it later. Man, once it's past 24 hours, I'm pretty much not going to go watch it again. Even if I saw it and just fell asleep or didn't watch it. Well, thank you, Jenny. But I mean, I have over 1,000 videos between Bench Clear and, Baseball Collector. It's like, that's a lot for anyone to consume. And I don't know. I thought about, if I go on YouTube now and go, hey, I did this video 3 years ago. I'm going to put a link to it. There's Mike Summer. Now he's going to.
Nice.
But, put a link to an old video of mine and say, hey, I talk even more about this here, and it's still pretty relevant. Go watch that. And I wonder if anybody would do it. I don't know.
Well, who else to ask this question to other than the man, the myth, the legend, the amazing Mr. Mike Summer? And yes, I did go back and start at the beginning, and I watched and listened to Mike, and you're the other one that I started at 0, and I have listened to every single one of your podcasts as well. Thank you so much for everything that you do for the hobby, Mr. Summer. And what is your comment?
Long time since I've been on Hobby Hotline.
I know. Honor and a privilege.
How to get here? Did you need directions? Did you?
Yeah, I did. I figured there's going to be a link someplace, and was able to click that link. Yeah, I love this. I love this topic of hobby content, and I think one of the things I love the most is that with what we've got, there's a place for everything, right? There's what Mike, what you were alluding to with the GTS news. The immediate aspect of being able to release that 15 minutes after recording it, the evening that news broke, I think is fantastic. I think what maybe needs to evolve based on the conversation that you guys have been talking about so far is that we need to realize that there's types of content that are going to be more suitable to different platforms, and the web and the video and the internet and all of that kind of stuff is going to be much more advantageous for the stuff that's real time, the breaking news, the 24-hour news cycle type stuff. But there is also a place, I think, for written content, whether on the web or in print form, that's going to need to be more of that evergreen content, more of that long form, telling a story, narrative type content that isn't going to be irrelevant, a few days later. And I think, there's a time and a place for that, as long as we're willing to adapt and evolve and think through where we put certain types of content.
Yeah.
I think
that kind of leaves a, based on what everybody's saying, a monthly magazine subscription is not a place for breaking news. That's more of your, Mike, you alluded to it, your local news paper that can release it the next morning, because with a magazine, by the time it comes out, it's old news, and they're better off going with the more evergreen topics to pique somebody's interest.
Yeah, and then there's a time and a place to leverage both. I was kind of just tossing out there the Gary Carter story and the 81 Top story, because those are both articles that I wrote for Beckett that got published in Beckett, but they're also topics that I've covered on the podcast. And so I covered the Gary Carter interview in May, and it just got published in Beckett Baseball last month in the September issue. But there's two different audiences, right? One heard the podcast live, and another read it in Beckett last month, both meeting that need, both telling the story, two different platforms, but it's spanning, a 6-month window, still relevant the whole time. I on the website, on the blog, my most trafficked site every month, my most trafficked page is my first Bowman reference guide, where people can search whose first Bowman is in what set, or where can I find so-and-so's first Bowman card. that reference information is the most trafficked content that I've got on the website each and every month. And it's not breaking news. It's somebody wanting to go back and find information about First Bowman cards. And so I think there's a time and a place, a location that can be found that meets a need, some real time, some, that can be looked back up, years and years later. And I don't know. I think that's one of the things I love most about creating content is that there's a place for pretty much anything that we want to put out there. It's just trying to get it into the right spot.
Well, on that, Mike, I mean, and this is for, we all do content. When planning content, how do you plan the relevant now content versus, your day-to-day business content or, helpful hints, or this is how you do eBay, or do y'all plan that, or does it actually just happen? I know, I don't know. It goes both ways for me. So that's why I'm asking. Mike starts off.
I do both. I mean, there's a little bit that's planned, and then there's a little bit that's just kind of spontaneous, that might be inspired by a question that I get or a conversation that I have at the shop and that type of thing. So I would say for me, it's both. I don't have a hard and fast rule.
Bo?
Most of mine is spontaneous. A lot of the content that I put out on my YouTube channel basically is just my morning daily video. And most of that content comes from somebody sends me a direct message asking a question, whether it's regarding eBay or, finding cards to flip or whatever. It's usually just emails or direct messages or a conversation I have at a card show, or, just it's pretty spontaneous. So when a question comes up like that, in many instances, it's pretty common now. The answer to me is common knowledge, but to many others, it's not quite common. So it always surprises me when I do bring up, a topic and talk about it, that so many people are like, oh, I never thought of that. And, I think that's one thing that a friend of mine who was in marketing, before I was even really on hobby Twitter and long before YouTube, she said, write blogs. I was doing a lot of blogs at the time. Write blogs about how to sell cards on eBay. And to me at that time, I thought everybody knows how to sell cards on eBay. Everybody if I know how to do it, everybody else in this world knows how to do it, which is, a falsity. So, that was a good advice that I got. And all of a sudden I just started putting out some content that what I thought was common knowledge that actually wasn't. And so, but in the end, I think it's mostly spontaneous.
Mike, you and I were kind of talking about this earlier today. Talk about, you planning and your content strategies.
Well, I mean, I have shows that are like on the fly is literally what's going on right now in the hobby. It's a news show for friendly banter between Ty and myself, but we're trying to cover topics that are happening in the now in the hobby. And then Baseball Collector is very much just, here's my collection. Here's what I tell stories. And it's pretty tight. Like my most watched video on Baseball Collector is tips on how to buy sports cards on eBay. I did it 5 years ago, and it still gets comments and views today. And I'm like, good grief. My third largest is 15 vintage players you should be buying now, done April 2020. Oh, by the way, that's pretty good timing. Pretty good timing on that. How I catalog my baseball card collection is one of my most watched videos. Want to start a vintage baseball collection? Here's how you get started. Just those types of videos people tend to find if they're keyword searching or just looking for things, and they're going to come across that potentially. What I got in the mail today is probably not going to come up in a search. And, it's not SEO approved, kind of thing. So I think I just try to do different things. We actually tried an idea of Bench Clear University where we would just go through different basic topics on the hobby that, like Bo referenced, everybody knows this. Why would we do this? Everybody knows different terms, and you could do a glossary of hobby terms. I bet you could do that every year, and you'd get people that, man, I've never heard any of this stuff before. And you're like, well, I did it a year ago, or it would just. There's always new people coming in, and so many people that are, man, I didn't even know there was hobby content on YouTube. And I'm like, dude, it's been around for like 15 years on YouTube. So you just don't know. And I don't know. I do. But so I do that. And I was telling Brad earlier, like I did 5 pieces of content yesterday. I front load my week with whatever I'm doing for the week. I do my Golden Age of Cardboard. I do On the Fly. I did some stuff yesterday for Chasing Cardboard. I did an interview with another guy on his channel. I did a video for myself, and I just front load it. And other than this, I'm not probably going to do any content the rest of the week, but I've got stuff laid out to come out. I'm not as good as Bo, where I can wake up every morning at 7 a.m. and hit the live button and do that. And I know, like Mike, he plans his shows in advance. I mean, you want a backlog of ideas, and I have a long list of them for Golden Age of Cardboard of stuff I can do if I just feel like I'm running on writer's block or whatever. I'll do this week. But I like having a bank of ideas, I guess, to talk about. Do you do that, Mike?
Yeah, I've got a spreadsheet that's got a list of potential interview guests and potential topics to talk about, and usually kind of try to map those out several weeks in advance.
Yeah, just makes it easier.
What about you, Herman? How do you plan every Monday?
Usually I plan and I have no plan. I mean, me and you started when we first started the whole video series that I do started out just a regular, me and Brad using StreamYard, kind of like a Zoom meeting, just talking, not hitting the live button. We're just talking. One day we decide we're gonna hit the live button and off we go. No plan, no nothing, and it just kind of it goes that way. Sometimes some days we do have plans, topics. Some days we don't. Most days we don't. And I'm like, Bo, it's to me, it's almost like the nights that we don't have a topic are usually the best nights.
Like tonight.
Like
Secrets out.
I mean, because we'll jump on. Me and Ken will jump on when we first get on. We'll talk about what we did that week. We love to be talking about barbecuing, and everybody loves when I start talking about chickens. So and then it takes off, and somebody in the chat will bring something up, and then we'll run with it. So but then there is nights that we do have a planned topic, but and like you said, Mike, my most watched video on YouTube right now is one that was just the last minute after we went on air. We decided to talk about trading card database, and Jenny hopped on, and we just kind of bounced back and forth about how we use trading card database, and it gets like 7 or 8 views a week now, and it's been 6 months or 7 months ago that it even came out. So
I want to follow that up, Mike, with everybody know that statement. Everybody knows to do X, because I did go back and I started from zero all the way through, yet you seem to constantly come up with topics of stuff that people don't know about or you think that you would know about. What's your thought process on something like that? How would you even think about doing something like that?
Which mic are you asking? The smart one over there, or
the smart one? The smart one below me. You know which one?
Yeah, for me,
Mike.
That was the best engineering move you did all night.
For me, the whole inspiration for even starting the blog was so much had changed since I left the hobby and came back to the hobby. And I was learning so much as I was getting back into it that I wanted to start to share some of that information, right? And so that was the whole inspiration for the blog and then ultimately the podcast. So that's where a lot of that inspiration came from. So, the first thing is I started to get into selling cards, and it was, all right, how am I going to ship these cards? Right. And so that led to putting a blog piece together about the ultimate guide to shipping cards via PWE, that I put together. And then I put together the ultimate guide to shipping cards via USPS, where I talked about using the different size priority mailboxes and what fit into what. Those continue to be some of the most trafficked, topics that I get. Another in the top 10 is a page that has all of the NFL team addresses on it for people who want to send, mail to the teams to get in person or, through the mail autographs. So these 4 pages that I've got that are addresses for NBA, MLB, NFL, NHL team addresses to the stadiums. Those are some of the most trafficked sites that I get, but those are all things that were like questions that I had as I was getting back into collecting. And that's why, I put those articles together. That's why I put together this first Bowman guide. Actually, the inspiration for the first Bowman guide is Sports Card Radio. The guys from Sports Card Radio were talking about creating content, talking about potential evergreen content. One of the things they threw out there, man, it'd be great if somebody would put together a guide for first Bowman cards. And I was like, great idea. I'm going to do it. And I put in the time to look them all up and put it together. And that is now 2 years later, the most trafficked site, most trafficked page that I've got. So the inspiration has been, what was on my mind when I was getting back into it, and what types of things do people ask me about today, whether online or via email or in the shop when they're stopping in. That's what I do. That's all I do to kind of get those ideas of, what's been on my mind, what was on my mind when I was first getting back into the hobby, and what do people keep asking me about.
All right. So I'm going to do some comments here that we kind of been skipping over, so we got a little bit behind. So I'm just going to do a couple here. Presentation. I remember this story when it came out in print media because you couldn't take your computer to the bathroom. I think we've surpassed that one. And then Hall of Fame, favorite part was show signers. Still go back and read the old pricing. I remember that. That's where I got my Mickey Mantle, was actually there. Way easier to go back and listen to old podcasts than watching YouTube.
I actually agree with that.
I do too.
Yeah.
I mean, Mike, I've gone back into the bowels of, your podcast and just listened to everything just because it's easy. And Dr. Beckett's is easy to do. I hear people that find Golden Age of Cardboard and they're like, man, I started at the first episode and I've just been binge listening to it the whole time. So it is much easier to do podcasts. Yes. I agree with that.
And then we got Mike showed up. Hey, Mike, what's up?
I look at guys like Mike and Bo, these guys that do this daily stuff, and I can't do it. Like everybody says, oh, Mike, how do you do so much content? How do you put out so much? Because I do it all at once. Like I do it all in a day, and I just change T-shirts and hats. Seriously, I'll like, okay, what did I wear on? And sometimes you'll see that I'm lazy, and if you watch for a week, you're like, did Mike wear that same T-shirt all freaking week? Like that must smell terrible. No, I just shot all the videos in one sitting and did, a bunch of stuff because I got a lot of other stuff going on in life. We all have lives, work and kids and other hobbies. I mean, I can't interfere with my golf game. I've got to, do my content when it's, when I can't play golf. So
yeah, we all know how bad your golf game is. You need lots of practice. And this is directed to you, Mr. Yo and Hello.
Well, thank you for watching the old videos. I had a lot less gray back in the day.
Yeah, I do go back. And actually, some of my guesses my guess is content I probably listened to 3 or 4 times and still trying to go, how does that work again? So I definitely do that.
Let me
And
bring
so,
up a question. Let me bring up a question for the group. We can have this discussion about this.
sure.
Storage, right? It's a never-ending issue for collectors, is figuring out a way where to put all this crap that we buy that we love, and we just want to have it around and display it properly. I mean, I look behind Bo, and he's got this awesome wall of baseballs, signed baseballs, and Herman's got his Braves shrine behind him. I've got the museum behind me. Brad's got his area of mess behind him. But look, call a spade a spade. It just, Brad knows it. He knows. No, I'm just kidding. But storage. So my son's thinking about starting a business. He's about to graduate from college. He's incredible at woodworking, almost as good as my dad is. He works at a cabinet shop now, and he's like, I think I want to start making beasts or smaller like not everybody needs a beast this big, but smaller versions of kind of high end, nice, well made card storage.
I'm in.
Do y'all think there's a market for that? Like, I'm being serious, because I'm like, I don't, son, I think but he's thinking even Pokemon, TCGs, comics. Like right now for my comics, I'm using that bloody file cabinet, which it's okay, but it's not great. I'd love a beautiful wood one that I'm not embarrassed to have, in my room. What do you guys think? Crazy idea, or idea that might have some legs?
I think it has a lot of legs, because you see the like the library card catalogs. People spend big money on those because they're kind of rare. They don't come up for sale very often. People spend big money on that, so I think there's definitely a market for something like that.
And like, Bo, you haven't Brad's seen the Beast in person. Like, it's actually a beautiful piece of furniture. Like, regardless of its functionality, which is tremendous, so you got to have function and aesthetically pleasing too, I think. And you can create a niche mark, like the Pinzoni cases, the stuff that's on the wall for a lot of people use those, and those are fine. But I'm thinking, like, you could even have a tabletop version, like a 3x2, or just how many drawers do you want? Mine has a ton of them, but you could have, not everybody needs a beast. In fact, if you do, we need to talk, because you're probably a little crazy like me. But hey, tabletop, a desktop version that can have 6 drawers or 4 drawers, I don't know, just kind of be just an idea, just throwing it out there. What does everybody think? Because I'm trying to give him some advice as he's growing.
Because you've got a ton of Braves cards, Herman. How do you do yours? And would you even consider this a fantastic idea that you would need to purchase right away, because you would need something to store all your cards in?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great idea. Especially like, I've never seen yours, Mike, obviously, but is it designed to hold like slabs or top loaders, or what is it designed to hold?
It currently, under its current I built it to hold PSA slabs.
Okay.
But the idea would be to build one that would hold top loaders, right? You'd have top loader size. It's really just how big. You do 2 kinds of drawers: slab drawers and raw drawers, essentially top loader drawers. And then you would say, how many drawers do you want? And you build you build it. You just have different configurations. You could buy different styles, but it's all just a box, which makes it super simple to replicate if you use you know what I mean? And you can pick different kinds of wood. Mine happens to be out of walnut. Just because I love the way walnut looks. That's just me. Some people like oak or pine or whatever, different people have different tastes, but mine's designed specifically to answer your question. I can hold about 4,000 slabs in that.
The beast is almost as tall as I am. That's how. It's almost as tall as I am, and everybody look at the picture. But that's why I wanted the picture between Brody and I. I'm like 5'2". It's almost as tall as I am. It is called the Beast on purpose. So I there's cardboard out there that's supposed to do what the Beast does in a smaller aspect. But if you have something of that size, Mike, I know you would love to put like commons or something like that at the store. See, go ahead. I'm not going to steal your thunder. Go.
I mean, we all have these, right? Who
Mhm.
doesn't have boxes full of cards? And these just suck, right? I mean, they're but this is kind of what the hobby's like. Well, that's just what we have, you know. Well, why do we have to have that? And you have the Pelican cases, right? But this is more like home storage for your piece. Like this is where you would keep your good
The
stuff.
stuff you're not going to get rid of.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
I just hate these things. I mean, I have so many of these, and oh, they're a pain in the rear, you know.
Well, I think the more I think about it, when you first brought it up, I thought, I think it is appealing to some collectors, but it wouldn't be appealing to me. But now as I think it through, I would be in the market for something like that, because right now I have those white storage boxes in my card room, and we're all collectors. We all have cards. When we have people over and they want to see what's your oldest card, what's your most valuable card, what's a cool card, Herman's been to my house, Mike Summers been to my house. You've seen my card room, and it's, I don't want to take people, oh, look at this. And I open this white box. But I have the ball wall behind me so I can show people, oh, this, I met Wilson Contreras in the parking lot at Denny's and he signed this baseball. They have stories.
And what are you more proud of, Bo, showing people? The card room with all the ugly boxes, or your ball wall that's nicely displayed?
Probably the ball wall, because it's nicely displayed and there's more stories. Cards, it's like, oh, I got this at the card show last month. There's not much of a story behind it, but the balls behind. I think somebody asked me in the chat, since I'm talking about it, these are all Cubs signed baseballs. Most, probably 90 to 95% in person at Cubs conventions, spring training, minor league games, major league games, but all Cubs, and everywhere from a minor leaguer that flamed out at Double-A to Ernie Banks and Ron Santo.
Yeah, I was just looking for the other one. Mike, what about you at the store? Would a wooden one be more appealing than these boxes that I'm showing currently? I mean, or do you even do something like this there?
Yeah, I don't know that it would be appealing to me to have at the shop, but it is, it would be appealing to have at home. What I was going to say or suggest is I think there is a market for custom furniture like that, whether it's card specific, whether it's a display cabinet for other memorabilia that displays it, nicely. There's many people that I know that have custom bars that are built in their basement, custom pieces of woodworking that are meaningful to them, that have incorporated things that are important to them and their families and their passions and their interests. And so whether it's for, slabbed cards, top loaded cards, mag cards, complete sets, or, some other kind of cabinet that would display balls and memorabilia and bats and jerseys or whatever it might be, I think there is a market. I think the key with any of it is kind of that connection to the customer, right? And so I think there's a market out there. It's just finding those customers and connecting them with the people who are able to put it together and build it and get it into your hands.
It's funny when people come over to my house, I talk more about the beast and building it and what it's like than the cards inside of it, just because I'm so proud of what my dad and I built when we built it. And it's a great story, but at the same time, I think I know several collectors that have taken that idea and built their own, or had it, they consigned it out for somebody to build for it. Like one of my buddies had some Amish guys build it and it cost him $5,000. I'm like, dude, it doesn't have to cost, and he calls his the monster, and another buddy calls his the big unit. I'm like, you guys are just, come on. Like,
I'm so marking that and putting that on a next video.
So it costs the big. So it's just, we all somebody said it. I can't remember who said it, but we spend so much on these cards, and we do spend a lot on storing them through card savers or top loaders or penny sleeves or pages and binders and cardboard boxes and all this stuff. None of it's like permanent. None of it's like, man, I really, oh, there you go. Great idea, Tom.
Yeah.
I'll tell my son that one. That's it for binders. That's a great idea, because no shelves really do binders justice, because they're kind of weird,
Yeah.
But if you could make one that would be individually slotted for binders, because nobody likes their binders falling down, and right. If it's a problem, try to solve it, and I don't know. I'm sorry. That's way off topic, but
We had one.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So we are coming up against it. So I do want to remind everybody that, this Saturday, episode 172, I will be on it again. So yes, you have 3 episodes of Brad straight in a row. Myself, Jeff, Adam, and Logan will be on. So there will be some skid mark comics had, and there will be skid marks at least said once or twice or 3 times, or as many times as Logan can get it in. And then, we showed the article for Sports Collectors Digest, the content creators article. There's also one coming out pretty soon for Hobby Hotline. So be watching that as well. And I want to thank our very, very special guest, Mike S. Thank you for joining us. It was a rare pleasure to have you on. And please give everybody your socials and everything, so that they could go back from episode 1 and listen just like I did.
Oh, well, thanks for letting me jump in. You guys, I tuned in. You guys were hitting on a topic I'm passionate about, content creation. So I thought I would chime in with a few thoughts. At the Mike Summer on Twitter, waxpackhero.com is where you can find the blog posts, as well as links to the podcast. So thanks for letting me jump in and chat with you guys for a little bit tonight.
I'm still trying to write Mike a song that's going to be in the tune of Jukebox Hero, the old 70s song. I've got some of the lyrics figured out, and it's going to be Wax Pack Hero, and it's going to be good. And he's not going to have to pay me anything. I'm just going to do it.
Oh,
but I can't wait. I can't wait, and it will be the intro to the podcast from that point on. So I can't wait.
Well, I promised that for like a year and a half to Mike, so he's not holding his breath.
Mr. Yoan, hello. Give everybody your socials and how they can reach you.
On YouTube, Baseball Collector, and Bench Clear Media, and Chasing Cardboard, and then I do Golden Age of Cardboard podcast on podcasts, and I'm on Instagram at Baseball Collector Mike.
Awesome. Mr. 1 Million, let us know how you can reach out and be touched by someone.
Add 1 Million Cubs on Twitter, 1 Million Cubs Project on Facebook, 1 Million Cubs on Instagram, 1 Million Cubs here on YouTube, and 1millioncubs.com can direct you in all of those places.
Most excellent. And last but not least, Mr. 3B, Mr. Harmon, Mr. Braves. How can people
3B collection on YouTube and Twitter? It's my Facebook is pretty much inactive, so
I hear you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you very much for watching. All the comments, gripes, complaints, nags, pet peeves, and jokes about me were surely appreciated. We thank you very, very much for spending time with us this evening. Y'all take care and stay classy, everybody.